Louis XIV. Louis XIV was the King of France from 1643 to 1715 and is remembered as one of the most powerful and wealthy monarchs in European history. Known as the Sun King, he ruled for over 70 years, shaping France into the leading power of his time. From a young age, he believed in absolute monarchy, meaning all authority came directly from him. His wealth was not just personal, but tied to the strength, size, and resources of France itself, which had one of the largest populations and most productive economies in Europe. Royal revenue. A major source of Louis XIV's wealth came from taxation. France collected taxes on land, goods, and everyday necessities, bringing in large and consistent income. Systems like the taille, a land tax, and the gabelle, a salt tax, ensured steady revenue for the crown. His finance minister, Jean-Baptiste Colbert, reorganized the economy to increase efficiency and profit. Colbert promoted industry, improved manufacturing, and encouraged exports while limiting imports. This economic strategy, known as mercantilism, aimed to keep wealth inside France and strengthen the royal treasury.
Versailles. The Palace of Versailles became the most powerful symbol of Louis XIV's wealth and authority. What began as a simple hunting lodge was transformed into one of the most extravagant palaces in the world. It featured massive halls, golden decorations, intricate artwork, and perfectly designed gardens stretching for miles. Thousands of workers and artisans were involved in its construction and maintenance. Versailles was not only a home, but also a political tool designed to impress visitors and control the nobility by keeping them close to the king. Court life. Life at Versailles reflected extreme luxury and constant display of wealth. The royal court followed strict rules of behavior, where even small actions became formal ceremonies. Nobles were expected to attend daily rituals and compete for the king's attention. They spent large amounts of money on clothing, gifts, and appearances to maintain status. Louis XIV himself wore richly decorated outfits made from silk, gold thread, and jewels. Frequent feasts, dances, and celebrations added to the image of endless wealth, reinforcing the idea that the king stood above all others.
Military power. Louis XIV invested heavily in building one of the largest and most organized armies in Europe. Maintaining such a force required enormous financial resources. He expanded the military, improved training, and built strong fortifications along France's borders. Throughout his reign, he fought multiple wars to expand territory and influence. While these campaigns increased France's power, they were extremely expensive. A large portion of the kingdom's wealth was spent on soldiers, weapons, and long-term military operations. Economic strength. France during Louis XIV's reign was one of the richest nations in Europe. Its wealth came from agriculture, trade, and growing industries. The country produced large amounts of grain, wine, textiles, and luxury goods such as silk, mirrors, and fine furniture. Trade networks connected France to other European states and overseas markets. Under Colbert's policies, industries were protected and expanded, helping France compete economically with rivals like England and the Dutch Republic.
This strong economic base allowed Louis XIV to sustain his lifestyle and political ambitions. Colonial wealth. France also benefited from its colonial possessions during Louis XIV's reign. Territories in North America, the Caribbean, and parts of Africa contributed resources and trade opportunities. Colonies produced valuable goods such as sugar, tobacco, and furs, which were sold in European markets for profit. Trade with these regions added to the overall wealth of the French state.
While not as dominant as some other empires, France's colonial system still played a role in supporting royal finances and expanding economic influence. Debt and financial strain. Despite the appearance of endless wealth, Louis XIV's rule placed heavy strain on France's finances. The cost of maintaining Versailles, funding wars, and supporting the royal court was enormous. Over time, the government relied more on borrowing money to cover expenses. Debt increased, and the financial system became unstable. Taxes remained high, especially for the lower classes, while nobles often paid less. This imbalance created tension within society and weakened the long-term stability of the economy.
Social inequality. While Louis XIV displayed great wealth, it was not shared equally across France. The nobility and royal court lived in luxury, but many ordinary people struggled with poverty and heavy taxation. Peasants, who made up most of the population, carried much of the financial burden through taxes and labor. Crop failures and economic difficulties made life even harder for them. This gap between the wealth of the monarchy and the struggles of the population created long-term social problems that would continue after his reign. Comparison to other rulers. Compared to other monarchs of his time, Louis XIV stood out for the scale and visibility of his wealth. While kings like those in England or Spain also controlled large resources, Louis focused heavily on displaying his power through architecture, court life, and ceremony. His approach made wealth not just a tool for governing, but a key part of his identity as a ruler. The image he created influenced other European courts, many of which tried to imitate the style and structure of Versailles. Legacy. Louis XIV's wealth left a lasting mark on history. He transformed France into a cultural and political center of Europe, with influence that extended far beyond its borders. His use of wealth to display power, control nobility, and strengthen the state became a model for absolute monarchy. However, the financial strain created during his reign also had long-term consequences. Future rulers inherited debt and economic challenges that would grow over time. His legacy remains a mix of greatness and imbalance, showing both the height of royal power and the cost of maintaining it.